Special Correspondent Jackass here, June 19th, 2020, and I want to wish you all a happy Juneteenth. Juneteenth, you say? What is that? Well, you've been living under a rock if you don't know about Juneteenth. But real quick, short history lesson. June 19th, 1865, General Granger of the Union Army went down to Galveston, Texas, and informed the people there that the war was over, slavery had been abolished, and all of the slaves were free. So it's kind of a big deal. It was the end of slavery. We're going to go back inside to our other correspondent, Philip, and we're going to talk a little bit in there about what this means to him. Well, thanks, Jack. And thank you for not making this a joke. So, I know usually when you guys see Jackass, we're making fun of somebody, usually the weatherman or something like that. But I kind of want to take a different tone today, and I want to share a little something with you. It's kind of long. I'm going to have to read it, so I apologize. It is scripted. So anyway, bear with me, and I hope you appreciate what I got to say. Thanks. So I'm going to share my recent little moment of epiphany. Earlier this week, we got the notice that the company I work for is giving all employees and contractors a paid holiday in honor of Juneteenth. Even working for over 20 years in the liberal hotbed of the San Francisco Bay Area, this was an absolute first for me, and I think for a lot of people. I learned about Juneteenth many years ago, but I never really gave it a lot of thought. I guess I figured, well, that's an interesting thing to know, but then it went out of my head. I certainly never celebrated. I never wished anyone of any color happy Juneteenth. Honestly, I simply never cared. I'm not going to put up some front of false contrition, but I have just realized what a huge blind spot this has been, and I am a little ashamed that it's taken all that's happening right now to shine that light on it, to make me actually give it some real thought. I mean, this should be a huge deal. Consider the implications. The end of slavery came at a cost of vicious warfare that ripped this country apart for 4 years. When that final proclamation was announced in Galveston, Texas, it was the end of a nightmare for something like 4 million human beings, over 12% of the U.S. population at the time. On July 4th, 1776, the entire population of the United States was only about 2.5 million people, and not all of them were liberated by the Declaration of Independence. The grievances of the colonial Americans were justified, I believe, but no matter how they railed against British taxation, does that even compare to being literally enslaved? And the 4th of July has become arguably the biggest non-religious holiday in this country. It seems to me that the date that signified the end of actual slavery should be every bit as big an event, not only to black Americans, but to every American. Look around you. You may not know it, but there's a good chance you know someone who is only 3 generations removed from slavery on one side or the other. How different would their lives be? How different would this country be? And yes, Mr. and Miss Pragmatist over there, it's highly likely that the institution of slavery would have collapsed anyway. It was already on the way out throughout the Western world. But this happened instead, and the impending collapse of the system doesn't make the result any less momentous. So here's more than a passing thought. For one day in March, millions of Americans are suddenly Irish, despite the fact that the Irish immigrants were widely reviled for a big part of U.S. history. And despite 364 days of anti-immigrant rhetoric, on a single day in May, out comes the red, white, and green flag. Ironically, or not, out of the whole crowd of guys slamming tequila shots at my local Mexican place on May 5th, the only Hispanic face in the mix was the bartender serving them. But that really isn't justification for taking Juneteenth seriously as a cause for celebration. It shouldn't even need to be justified. The fact that it passes largely unremarked every year is a sad statement on the way Americans are taught our own history, as well as a general failure to appreciate the Black American experience. At this time, when I see so many people railing against the removal of Confederate monuments as erasing history, it suddenly occurs to me that the abolition of slavery is the history that has been not erased, but certainly marginalized. If you really want to understand that part of this country's history, look around you at the black faces. There's your monument. There's the story that should be told. And I've never thought that before. Is this epiphany going to change my life? Honestly, I don't know. Probably not a lot, if I'm truthful. I'm not flying any special flags today or setting off any fireworks. I'm probably not going to start marching in the streets, but don't rule it out. And aside from this and other occasional commentary, I'm probably not starting or joining a major social media campaign. Politically, I already skew towards social justice over other issues. If I had to say it, I feel like I'm semi-woke, but there's so much more to learn, and I think I'm trying. But I remain a middle-aged white man, educated and, thankfully, in a fairly comfortable middle-class economic bracket. And I live in the rural South. I have all sorts of privilege handed to me every day of my life, whether I want it or not. And come on, who wouldn't want it if they can get it? But the other side of that is I don't have to think about people who don't get that privilege. It's part of the reason I think I never really considered the importance of Juneteenth. I don't want to make this about me, though, or my state of wokeness or whatever. I'm not apologizing for being white or for having privilege. I want this to be about you, especially if you are like a lot of people out there wondering what the hell all this fuss about Juneteenth really is, or if you're like a lot of people who honestly don't give a damn. If you haven't before, think about it through different eyes. Think about the fact that 155 years ago, this country as we know it had just been reborn. As part of that rebirth, almost 1/8 of the human beings living here were freed from slavery. More than 12 people out of every 100. An entirely evil institution was utterly abolished from the reunited States of America. It's kind of a big damn deal. So I think it's worth celebrating. And happy Juneteenth, everybody.